It's May 22nd, 2024. We're here at the beautiful Winter Park home of retired band director Brian Sullivan.
All right.
Brian is our latest legacy recipient, and we are super thrilled to be here with him. When did you decide on a band director's career, and what got you there?
Oh my goodness. Well, first of all, it's an honor to be on this list of legacy folks. I grew up here in Winter Park, ended up retiring from school in Winter Park, so it's this is certainly my hometown. When I was a kid still in elementary school, we were able to join the band. The band was run by a local music store, Mo, for those of you that know Mo, and ran the bandwagon music store. Part of their business model was to come around and start up elementary school bands. And the idea that they'd rent instruments, so it worked. So I was playing the clarinet in 6th grade, and then I went to Glenridge Junior High School, where I was in Gordon O'Hara's band.
Oh,
So that's a name that you all should know. Gordon O'Hara, very successful at junior high, high school, and college. So a big influence on me. So I played clarinet in the Glenridge Junior High School band, and then I went to the Winter Park High School band with Jack Williams. Now that's a Hall of Famer. So Jack Williams, Edgar W. Williams, aka Jack Williams, just a real big deal in terms of Florida bands in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. He was a giant. And so, we were catching him kind of in the last part of his career, kind of very grandfatherly figure, but terrific band program. And one of the things that he did, I'm playing the clarinet in the band, and I was never a hot shot player. That's the thing. I was, I took lessons, I did solo and ensemble, but I was clearly a middle of the section player. I was never a front row player. As a junior, he says, well, Brian, I could use a bass clarinet player. So fine. I was already playing saxophone in the marching band, and so yeah, love to learn a new instrument. So I played the bass clarinet for him, and then he goes, you know what? You're doing pretty good on that. I bet next year you'd have a shot at making the all-state band. Now that was just a little throwaway comment for him, but it ended up having a huge implication for how my life would unfold. So I try out for the all-state band. I make the all-state band. I make first chair in the all-state band, which was really something. So for the first time in my, band career, I'm one of the hot shots. I was never really a hot shot. And in a band full of hot shots. Winter Park High School was a band full of hot shots. And so I go to the all-state there, and who is my conductor? Arnold Gabriel.
wow.
Okay? And the program starts with Rolling Thunder, ends with Capriccio Italienne, and in the middle, he had his Air Force arranger do a setting of music from the film The Wind and the Lion. And the arranger gives this lengthy solo in the middle to the bass clarinet. I think in the movie it was a cello. So bass clarinet solo. And so after The Wind and the Lion, I'm one of a handful of soloists that gets a little solo bow. Fine. Now that little information that is going to come in handy as the story unravels. So great experience, and it was just a lot of fun. So now it's time to pick a college, and my best buddy and I decide that we're going to go away to college together. Where do you want to go? So we apply to all the state universities. We narrow it down to University of Florida and Florida State. And, we were not even that into the whole rivalry thing. We had trouble keeping track. Well, which one is Gainesville and which one are the Seminoles? We didn't really know. We decided basically on a coin flip to go to University of Florida in Gainesville. And I had no idea what I was going to major in. It was certainly not going to be music. I thought one of the things I really enjoyed doing, I took classes in high school, radio and TV. So I thought, well, you know what? Maybe I'll be one of those behind-the-scenes TV news producers, something like that. And I'll play in the band for fun. So we get up there, get settled in our dorm room, and we go for the marching band auditions. And my buddy goes to find the trombone auditions with Dick Bowles. There's a name. And then it turns out that saxophones, I wanted to play the saxophone in the marching band. They say, well, saxophones, you actually audition with our band director, Frank Wicks, Mr. Wicks. So I said, oh, okay. So I go in, introduce myself. He knew of Jack Williams and the Winter Park Band, so already I'm feeling, hey, this is pretty cool. I've got a little bit of a credential, and I'm playing my saxophone, and he has this funny look like he's trying to recall where he's seen me before. We had never met. And during a break in the audition, he asked me, well, now tell me again, you play clarinet. I said, well, I play all the clarinets, little E flat, I played bass. In fact, this past January, I was in the yawl, and I couldn't even finish that statement. And Frank Wicks goes, the wind and the lion. With his big nose and big bony finger, he goes, the wind and the lion. You played that solo. Cynthia, get in here. So he calls off to his secretary, and he grabs my cards. I need you to sign up, Brian Sullivan, sign him up for the advanced band, symphonic band. Oh, Mr. Wicks, I mean, I'm not a music major or anything. And if you know Frank Wicks, you know, you can just imagine, you know, he just leans into you with that nose and, well, no, that's no problem. Some of my best music players are not music majors. That you'll do fine. So you don't say no to a man like Frank Wicks.
Certainly.
So, okay. And I asked him kind of sheepishly, well, can I still play my saxophone in the marching band? Oh, yeah, of course. So, you know, get home and been back to the dorm. And my buddy asked me, how was it? I was like, well, it was an interesting audition. So I tell him what's happening. And so, you know, I'm starting a freshman in college, going to classes, but hanging out in the band building a lot. And I found that I really felt home there. Just like in junior high and high school, where I felt home in the band room. The band building at UF and the other music majors, the kids, my contemporaries, that's where I felt home. Not back at the dorm where everyone's, you know, pre-law or business or engineering. I felt like one of those band kids. So I said, well, listen, if one were to major in music, how would one go about that? And so they give me a sheet of paper, so I talked myself into the theory class. I tried talking myself into the clarinet studio with Terrence Small. He wouldn't let me in the first semester.
Oh.
But he said, he gave me a stack of papers, says, here, practice this, come see me in January. So I did, you know, I'm still undeclared. Practice whenever I can. I go back in January, I play it, it goes, oh yeah, well, okay, you're doing okay. Yeah, go ahead, I'll take you. So I kind of operate as if I'm a music major. I'm still officially undeclared, you know, and I'm always thinking, well, what did Mr. Wicks do? What did Frank Wicks do? He seems to have a pretty cool gig. So it's like, well, he had a really good high school band, took him to Midwest. Dick Bowles heard them and invited Frank to come be the band director. So I'll do that. I'll do that. So how do you be a high school band director? So I took all the classes. I did everything that I could. And I you know, felt like I was playing catch up, you know, because some of my colleagues, some of my contemporaries, they knew they were music majors from day one. And so I'm kind of at least a semester behind in some ways and just trying to play catch up. And I just do everything possible to take classes and to join ensembles. I'm playing in the band, I'm playing in the marching band, I'm playing in the orchestra, I'm singing in the advanced mixed chorus, I'm doing everything. One of my classmates was Bob Sheldon, Robert Sheldon. He was there doing graduate work. And he was teaching at P.K. Young High School, and he was also conducting the local Alachua County Youth Orchestra. And he knew of my interest in conducting, so he invited me, hey, I could use an assistant conductor. So I'm the assistant conductor of the Alachua County Youth Orchestra with Bob Sheldon. And our principal clarinet player was a, I don't know, 8th or 9th grader, a little kid named Rodney Dorsey. So again, I'm dropping the names I drop. Hopefully all of you out there in FBA land are either aware or want to become aware of these names. Okay? So you never know how then those paths will cross at some point later. So I said, well, I'm going to be a high school band director. So I go on interviews, rejection after rejection, failed interview after failed interview. Is this ever going to happen? And it turns out I received a phone call from a school that I was not even aware of, Cocoa High School.
Huh?
I had interviewed for another Brevard County high school, and it went well, but the principal said, well, listen, we're just not in a position to turn our program over to someone right out of school. And I'm thinking, well, great, how many times am I going to hear that? But I guess, principals talk, and it was astronaut high school that I was going for. The astronaut principal hears that Cocoa High School needs a band director. So I said, well, listen, I just interviewed a young guy. He's right out of school, but here's his name and number. So they call me and said, oh, okay, now this could turn out to something. So I said, okay, I'm still 21 years old. I haven't even turned 22 yet, and I want to be a high school band director. And so I figured, well, I'm kind of tall, and I had grown a beard, and I put on my best suit, and I practiced speaking low and slow, low and slow, low and slow. So I go there, trying to make a good impression. I walk into the Cocoa High School office, and one of the secretaries there, oh, Mr. Sullivan, yes, your mom called.
Oh.
I'm thinking, like, did I forget my lunch money? What's going on? So, of course, this is way back before cell phones. After I left the house, I was living at home with my folks. I left the house to go on this interview, and there's a phone call that my mom takes, and it's the principal for one of the high schools in Polk County that I had interviewed for the previous week. She told him, well, he's actually on his way to an interview. And they said, oh, listen, no, please get in touch with him. We want him to be our band director. And so she figures out, luckily I told her where I was going, and so she finds the number to Cocoa High School. She had called. So I walk in there, call your mom. You're like, oh my goodness. And of course, this is the open office. Ladies are sitting at their table. Yeah, you can use my phone. No privacy, nothing. So I call, I pick up the phone. Hey, Mom, what is it? I said, oh, I'm glad I caught you. Mr. So-and-so from so-and-so high school called, and he said he wants you to be their band director. And it was like the weight of the world was lifted. I said, yes. I have a job. And it was all I can do not to slam down the phone and just run out the office. Get in the car, find a phone, and say yes. But I figured, since I'm here. So I go through the interview, and it was very nice. I was very impressed. Nice school. I got to meet the outgoing band director, John West. Oh. So there's a name a lot of you all know. He was leaving to go to grad school, and he gave me the tour of the band facility. I'm thinking, hey, this is a pretty nice setup. But all along I'm thinking, a bird in the hand. So I go back in with the administrators, and the interview wraps up. I mean, I was so relaxed and calm. I may or may not have put my feet up on the principal's desk. I mean, because I know I have a job.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how this goes. So as it wraps up, they say, well, thank you so much for coming in. We'll need a few days. We'll get back to you. We're going to try to talk to some other people. And I said, well, funny story. When I got here to the office, my mom had called and left a message that I have a job offer. And so, it's getting late in the summer. It's well into July. And so I appreciate it. I know you want to talk to some other people, but I think I'm just going to get right on home and call and take that. I don't want to risk losing it. And they look kind of, oh, well, we understand. So, I leave on good terms, and I'm making my way out to the parking lot, and I hear, Mr. Sullivan, huffing and puffing, is the chubby athletic director. I'll never forget his name, Walt Lazabek. He was sitting in on the interviews. Okay, listen, Brian, please ask that principal for a few days, because they like you. I've said they like you. Ask for a few days. I said, well, that's great to hear, but I just don't want to. So I'm driving home. It's about an hour drive. I'm thinking, well, you know what? Mr. Williams, Jack Williams, he's at school for summer band. I would trust no one's advice more than his.
Yes.
So I pull into the parking lot, Winter Park High School, summer band. Mr. Williams is sitting back in his desk, smoking his corncob pipe. He's got his knees, corncob pipe, smoking pipe in his man. and I tell him my quandary. Well, Brian, puff, puff, you got to do what you think is best. Okay, what kind of advice is that? So, anyway, so I get home then. My house is just a few blocks away. So I walk in the house and I hear my mom on the phone. Oh, here he is now. Now what? And it turns out it was Cocoa High School, and they had called, and they had decided they wanted to offer me the job, and they wanted to catch me before I got home. And so I said, yes, you have a band director. Because I thought of the two things equal, I would have preferred Cocoa. But again, I had an offer in hand. So I said yes, and then I had to call the other principal and said, well, listen, I'm sorry, but I've decided to go elsewhere. So I start off in Brevard County, Cocoa High School. And you talk about a posse of great, supportive colleagues that would not let me fail. I mean, to this day, I could just tick off, I think, every band director in the county, from Ron Yeomans, Dave Ammerman, Mike LeClaire, Bob Hansborough, Chris Ball, John Horn, and Mike Patrizzi, soon Mark Nelson, the middle school, Bill Cannon, Andre Arroway was there, Ken Nixie joined us at Melbourne High School. Just you name it. There was a neat mixture of a few directors that were a few years older than me, some that were mid-career, some that were, well into their career. And, they would just come over. I was right next door to, at that time it was called Brevard Community College. Nat Baggerly, Marion Scott, they were always in my room. Al Hager, one of my number one mentors, he was always in my room. And I just learned so much from these guys. They were so supportive. And I spent 5 years there, Cocoa High School Band. Now, I was also playing in the Brevard Symphony Orchestra. I kept my clarinet up, so I was playing in the Brevard Symphony, and I just loved the music. At every rehearsal, I had bought those little yellow Calmus miniature scores, and whenever I could, I'm either playing out of it, or when the conductor's rehearsing the strings, well, what is she telling the violins? And I'm trying to learn by following scores. And so I'm at Allstate one year, and one of the featured groups was the FSU Symphony Orchestra. And one of their pieces was conducted by a graduate student, a graduate assistant. And I'm thinking, that sounds fun. So the very next morning, I go down to the FSU table. I talk to John Pearsall, graduate dean. I said, listen, Dr. Pearsall, I'm thinking to do maybe one more year of high school teaching. I'd like to get my master's degree, and I would love to work with your orchestra, like the fellow last night was doing. I said, well, we don't offer a degree in conducting, but we do offer a fellowship or an assistantship to be the assistant conductor. So how does one do that? So next year I'm just studying scores. Decided I'm going to study orchestral conducting somewhere. And I decided that I could afford 2 audition trips. So the first trip was to the Peabody Conservatory up in Baltimore. And that went well. Of course, very fine orchestra. And then the second trip was to Florida State. And I go do my audition. That went well, and I was so impressed with that orchestra too. And I get accepted to both, and Peabody offers me, I would be one of 8 master students sharing a little make-believe lab orchestra a couple afternoons a week. At Florida State, I would be the assistant conductor of the orchestras. I would conduct on every program, either the opening overture or the doctoral concerto, or sometimes both. And then my mentor, Philip Spurgeon, great man, he would then do the major piece on the second half, the symphony, the tone poem. So I got to do that. I ended up spending 4 years there. I had met my future wife, Jennifer. She was studying to be a middle school band director. And we ended up getting married, and I thought, well, okay, we'll blend a career where she's a band director somewhere, and I'm conducting orchestras, and we'll make it work. So after 4 years of that, while still in school, I'm conducting the local Tallahassee Youth Orchestra. I'm conducting a community group in Panama City, meeting a lot of people, learning a lot of repertoire. And then when we finish at FSU, I come to move back to Central Florida. I was invited to take over the UCF orchestra for 1 year as a sabbatical replacement. John Whitney
Oh,
was taking a year. He had seen me at an ASOL workshop up in Ann Arbor, and he knew I had some Central Florida ties. And he said, "Listen, I'm taking next year off. Could you, or would you be interested in coming to conduct the orchestra this year?" I said, "Well, would I?" So I said, "Jenny, find a job in Central Florida." So she finds a job in Leesburg, Carver Middle School. And so we end up living in Leesburg. Jenny teaches at Carver Middle School, and this time now I'm doing 3 part-time orchestras. I'm doing a professional group up in Fort Walton Beach, the Okaloosa Symphony. That's about 8 weekends a year. I'm doing UCF, which is 2 nights a week, and I'm doing the Brevard Symphony Youth Orchestra. That's another night a week. So my days are pretty much free. And I would often find myself going into Carver Middle School to assist my wife with her middle school band. And I'm thinking, well, this will be a piece of cake. I mean, I've already have 5 years of high school under my belt. I'm a big shot orchestra conductor. How hard can this be? So she's, okay, clarinets, beginning clarinets. Mr. Sullivan's going to take you next door and get you started. It's like, okay.
yeah,
They're going to be playing the Weber in an hour.
yeah.
And I mean, the knuckleheads don't know how to open the case without the pieces falling on the floor, right? But it was so much fun to help her with the kids, especially the beginners, and to see her teach. And I'm thinking, you know what? When this UCF year is up, I'll need to get a job. I may want to try middle school band. And anyone knew me, it's like, what? Are you sure? I said, well, no, I think, because this way, I wasn't interested in really doing the marching band anymore. And if I did middle school, I figured, well, I can keep these other orchestras that are nights and weekends. So I ended up doing that, and I link up with a guy. I found another fella named Andy Poor, who's leaving to go to grad school himself. He was down at Kissimmee, Beaumont Middle School. And I go down, I spend a day with him. I watch him teach. We chat, we see eye to eye. He invites me back the next day. So I want to watch you teach all day. So I teach all day. At the end of the day, he brings me into his principal's office and basically says, hire this man. And the principal goes, oh, okay, you got it. And so now I'm a middle school band director in Kissimmee. My wife is a middle school director in Leesburg. So if you look on a map of Florida, pretty much that means we live in Winter Garden. She turnpikes north, I turnpike south. We meet for dinner, and we're teaching each other how to teach middle school band. She's pretty much a new teacher, and I'm new at middle school. And over dinner, it's like, what's the deal with flutes and French horns? What do we do with the French horn? We're basically coaching each other every night about what to do the next day. And but I tell you what, I ended up loving it. I became one of those passionate late converts to something, And again, I feel like I'm playing catch up, because in a way I'm like, well, I'm 10 years into a career. So that's 10 years of specific beginner pedagogy I don't have and repertoire. But I also know that, well, those 10 years of working with more advanced players, that gives me a little bit of an idea of what is the end game, what skills will they need. So I just ended up loving it. Beaumont Middle School, we had a new campus built. I actually was invited to draw the band room.
Wow.
Which I did, and they built it. When we moved to the new campus, it was now called Kissimmee Middle School. So I did a total of 14 years there in Osceola County, and just loved it. And I took a little extra pride in the fact that our school was always ranked lowest in every indicator in terms of ESOL, free and reduced lunch, teen pregnancy, crime, mobility. There's no way a band should succeed there. And because I had a supportive administrator, we were very successful. I mean, we could hold our own with basically any band in Central Florida. And then, as I was looking at the community as a whole, I'm thinking, well, okay, by this time now, we have kids, two young kids, and my wife had had a similar little switch. She had an opportunity to try elementary music, and the exact same thing happened to her. That's where her passion was. So she's teaching elementary school music. I'm teaching middle school. And we're just thinking, well, being honest, I'm thinking, is this really the environment where I want my two kids to come up through? And I had trouble getting excited about that, frankly, speaking very frankly here. And so I'd ask myself a question, well, where would you like them to go to school? I said, well, I grew up in Winter Park. I would not mind moving back there and letting my kids go to Winter Park High School. And I think that they should go to middle school with their future colleagues, so they should go to middle school at either Maitland or Glenridge. And now, selfishly, I hope to be their middle school band director. So I told Mike Parks, at that time was the kind of the music function as the music supervisor, said, Mike, let me know if Maitland or Glenridge opens. And there was a moment where I thought Maitland might be an availability, but it was not a done deal. Again, it would have been officially a 1-year leave for that teacher who, he says, will probably not come back. And I was so tempted. Could this be my chance? I could go to Maitland. No, I better not. And it turns out the very next year, Glenridge opens. Lee Sellers. This is when Lee was leaving Florida to go out to Texas. And so I go, and I was able to get the Glenridge job, which for me was even better because that was the school I went to. So I was doing the whole welcome back Cotter thing.
Yeah.
You know, it was a new campus built right across the street, so nice new facility, and all of the Glenridge students are zoned for Winter Park. Whereas like Maitland, some for Winter Park, some for Edgewater, things like that. So I'm really glad I waited the year. So I went to Glenridge, built up the program. Eventually they were able to hire an associate director, build up the program really big, and we continued to be real successful there, sending kids to Winter Park High School, including my own two kids. They came through the Glenridge band. My daughter played French horn, my son played tuba, and it was really neat. So I did 16 years. So I did a total of 30 years of middle school to wrap up. So kind of I did 40 years total. The one weird thing is that I did wrap up during COVID. So it was kind of a limping across the finish line thing. I had envisioned some huge, spectacular Mr. Sullivan's final concert of all time. And it wasn't to be. But, you know, I mean, I really felt bad for either teachers that were just starting their career or kids that were just starting college or other people in transitions that, oh, what bad timing for them. So, anyway, so this is now my third year out as a retiree. I do keep very busy doing a lot of judging, and I still get to do honor bands. And it turns out our two kids, my daughter is an elementary music teacher in Orange County, and my son just got a job. He's going to be teaching middle school band and strings over in Brevard County. So kind of so close to where I started.
Circles again.
Kind of. So, you know, that'll certainly be something that my wife's still an active elementary teacher. In fact, she's also the executive director for the FEMEA. She's kind of like the Neil Jenkins for the elementary music world. So, you know, we help our two kids as much as they want. You know, and of course we have to fight the temptation to stick our nose in. But so that's certainly going to that's going to keep us hopping, keep us busy. But yeah, it's just been a great career. And every cliche about, you know, where have the years gone? You know, it's like I still think of myself as a young guy who's trying to figure it out until I look in a mirror. The mirror is what reminds me that, I really am one of the old guys. But, you know, I still go to MPAs a lot just to listen, and I go to clinics and I listen to these, you know, younger directors who are just knocking it out of the park. And it's like, gosh, I almost wish I was still teaching. I'd like to try that trick. I'd like to try that approach. So, yeah, it's just, I mean, it's very. I feel like I've been blessed. I've been very fortunate to have the people in my life, of course, my loved ones, but the professional folks that I've had, meaningful dealings with.
Mm-hmm.
So, and here we are. Now I'm in the backyard, and I spend my time when I'm not on one of my bikes or not doing a band thing. I putter around. The yard has all these enclosures. Tina has already seen a little tour of the turtles and tortoises and other kinds of creatures that I keep back here. So it's kind of a fun little backyard puttering around hobby.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's beautiful back here. Beautiful, beautiful. Do you have, well, actually, we're almost out of time. So
Yeah.
do you have one more story you could tell us?
Well, just, I mean, any little
Or
bits.
some advice
Yeah,
you'd
just,
like to give?
I think about what are things that I would talk to a lot with interns or other young teachers. And obviously, a big part of their success is how do you run the band? Classroom management, rehearsal, atmosphere, rehearsal procedures, and things like that. And I say, you really do have to think hard about what are the procedures you want to have to establish. What does your facility support? What will your administration support? How do you want your students to come in the room? If they don't know how to come in the room, you take them out and teach them. How do they get ready? How do they put their things together? Procedures, procedures, procedures. Don't feel pressure to get into content. Now that's a little easier said for middle school. High school, realize you have to get a show on the field the second week of school. But the idea is to establish procedures, and if you do that and establish a good mix, a good balance of strict, but also loving and supportive, and that's hard to do. That is really hard to do. As a young teacher, I probably made the mistake a lot of people do of trying to be the cool, fun, friendly director, and some students would take advantage of that. And it got to the point, at some point, I just had basically a meltdown. This is when I was still teaching high school. And I went to the home of a couple of my colleagues in Brevard County, basically in tears. Said, I don't know what to do. And they just counseled me. And they asked me some of the same questions. Well, how do they come in the room? And how do you do this? And how do you deal with that? And I was very reactive. Things that I was not prepared for would happen, and I'd blurt out a consequence with no idea if it was appropriate and even if it would be supported by my administration. So I decided basically, okay, these behaviors will now be deal breakers. I will not accept this. And they prepped me for, what Behavior Modification 101 tells us is when you institute a stricter policy or rule, that at first it's going to get worse.
Yes. Yes.
But you have to be more stubborn than them. If you believe in your procedures, be more stubborn, and the few kids that you might lose are the disgruntled ones that you'll live. Your program will do fine. The students, the parents, the community will really appreciate kind of a tight ship, a well-run program that's big, that's inclusive, that's big, and just really that they can feel proud of. Not only how they play, but how the kids carry themselves as part of an audience. It's just, to me, those are some of the big things that I would like to encourage all of you to consider.
Yes, that's all fantastic advice. Well, thank you so much for spending time with us and giving us some good advice, giving us some great things to think about, and being available for folks to talk to. And
that's the thing. If you want to somehow publish or whatever, I love to get little email chains going or text. I still teach the initial solo ensemble adjudication approval class, and I said, listen, this is not the only time you're going to have access to me. Please give me a call, give me a text, give me an email. I love talking shop. I'll talk shop until your eyes are glossy. Right? I'll do that. Ask anyone who knows me well. They'll go, "Yep, that's Brian. He'll talk shop all day."
Well, and wisely so.
Well,
So thank you so much. It's time to say bye-bye
my pleasure.
and congratulations.
Thank you.